Hello booktube, welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn. Well, March was a tough month for me. I had a really bad knee injury, still have, but it's on the mend. If you saw my community post, I had a lot of visitors this month and I was in the ocean with my granddaughter, and that was the first time I was able to really stand on my leg and walk around, of course with some help with my cane and with someone helping me on the other side. But it was wonderful seeing my granddaughter because they live in Minnesota, my son, his wife, and my granddaughter, and I don't get to see them enough. So we had 2 days with them and it was glorious. And before that, before my injury in the beginning of March, I had a visitor who was both my daughter's roommate in college and my roommate after college while she was doing her PhD. She stayed with me and she brought me I just wanted to show you real quick. I'm not big on bookmarks, but this one is so beautiful. It's from New Zealand. And let me just show it to you. And it says here, Ian Blackwell, New Zealand, AOT Auto. And yeah, it's just gorgeous and it's really sturdy. And I'm so glad that she gave that to me because there are a lot of book events in April. So I have to start this by saying I kind of lied and said that there was going to be a March reading wrap-up, a monthly wrap-up. But I decided that I would put that off for a few days because it's April 1st today, and I wanted to talk about the wonderful events that are happening in April, including one of mine, which is just a read-along. And I'm going to just quickly show you the book again. In case you want to join, I'll have the code in the description box, and it's a read-along on Goodreads of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And last time I said this was the back, but this is the back. And this is the front. This is the 75th anniversary edition, and we're going to have a great time. We just started, so please go if you're interested. Like I said, I have a special connection with this book because they talk about the street that I was actually brought up on since I was 4 years old. And in fact, my mother and father, before they moved into that area, lived in one of those cold water flats that they talk about in this book. And I have a little bit of knowledge about that era and also about that neighborhood. So if you want to join me for this month, The Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I would be so happy to have you. Okay, now let's start on the other books and events in April. One of my favorite events in April is People April. I love memoirs, nonfiction, true stories. And this year, as I think last year, People April is hosted by some of my favorite people. And that's Roz from Scalladandling Around the Books and Elisabeth from Bookins and Books. And another one of my favorite persons is Brian from the Bookish Texan. So this is a very special event, and I think this is why I wanted to come on and talk about April before I talked about my wrap-up in March. So the first book I want to talk about, I think, is very current, though it's a miracle that this book even exists because, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I might have talked about this book briefly in another video, but I think that the things that are happening in the news today makes this especially relevant. So it's called Asylum, A Survivor's Flight from Nazi-Occupied Vienna Through Wartime France. And there's a picture of the cover, which I think kind of tells it all. And what makes it relevant is this person whose name is Moriz Scheyer. And I say this book would never have been written because his stepson burned the original manuscript of his memoir, and only through sort of a miracle was the carbon copies, they used to use carbon copies then, that his, and I don't know, so his stepson, it must be the child of the stepson found it. So he was an arts editor for one of Vienna's principal newspapers before the German invasion in 1938. Moriz Scheyer knew many of the city's great artists, from Stefan Zweig and Arthur Schwinzler to Bruno Walter, and was an important literary journalist in his own right. But when the vicious, brutal hands of Nazism grabbed hold of Austria, Scheyer was forced from his position and his home. So, having a newspaper person have to flee because of, well, he was an arts editor, but just news in general being something that is attacked, I think is something that we can relate to, unfortunately, in our time today. So in 43, and you know what's sad about this? He died in 47, I think, or 49, which is, he didn't live long, though he survived. While hiding in a convent at the Dordogne region of France, he began drafting what would become this book, his memoir, tracing events from the Anschluss in Austria through life in Paris, both pre-war and under German occupation, the exodus from Paris, his experience of a French concentration camp, an escape attempt, and contact with the resistance, and a final dramatic rescue. I mean, he went through a lot. And it says here, try to understand me, Moriz Scheyer begs the future readers of his memoir, and we do, leaving it drained but exhilarated by the description of how he roamed an unfriendly Europe stateless. With the publication of this mesmerizing book, his search for asylum might just be over. So I guess this has another meaning beside the news, tack on news, but also people seeking asylum in general. So this was translated with an epilogue, essay, and notes by the author's grandson. So it's his grandson, I think, who saved it. But I'm not sure. You're going to have to read it to find out. And it was published in 2016. Like I said, they found the carbon copy of the original. In the beginning, there is a map. And I don't know about you, but I love maps to guide me through a book when it's relevant to the story. And here it says the German occupation zone and all the places where he was seeking asylum. So that's one of my books for People April, and I think even though I did not read it, and I bought it almost 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago, I think that I will read it for sure this April, for People April. Now, the other book that I have to talk about is a book that I definitely started reading and put it down. But let me tell you, you probably heard of this book all over BookTube. It's The Postcard by Anne Berest. And basically, I'm just going to tell you real quick, her grandmother finds a postcard in the mailbox that is related to their history of also the same kind of experience, but in Paris, and that, well, this was in Paris too, that Moriz Scheyer experienced, but in a different way. Now, I want to let you know that a friend of mine and a friend of yours on BookTube, Lindy at Lindy's Magpie Reads, sent me a video of Jess from, now let me see, I know it's Seeking Kafka or Chasing Kafka, but let me just check. It's stalking. Well, it was close to chasing. Stalking Kafka has, and I'm going to put the whole video in the description box, because she started reading this book and it kind of, it didn't grab her in the beginning. She mentions that it was similar to The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which I haven't read. I don't like to read historical fiction about the memoir in general. But she said it was similar to that. But then it got into something deeper that affected her, and that probably will affect me, because we're both Jewish, struggling with Jewish identity, and struggling, in my own case, with Jewish and Puerto Rican identity, so being a bicultural identity crisis all my life. But what is this about? Okay, it says that it's at once a gripping investigation into family trauma, a poignant tale of mothers and daughters, and a vivid portrait of 20th century Parisian intellectual and artistic life. So, as I said, in the January 2003, with the usual holiday cards, an anonymous postcard is delivered to the Berest family home. On the front, a photo of the Opera Garnier, which I've been to actually in Paris. On the back, the name of Anne Berest's maternal great-grandparents, all killed in Auschwitz. Years after the postcard is delivered, the heroine of this novel is moved to discover who sent it and why. And I am going to try it again. Perhaps I'll try it on audio, which I don't usually do because I'm not a great audio reader. I like to read it on Kindle or in print. But in this case, because I wasn't getting along with the first part of the book, I might sort of listen to the first part on double speed, and which is more of a story of her ancestors and how they ended up in Auschwitz. And, you know, I just didn't find it compelling enough to continue. But, and then I'll probably end up reading it, the end of it. So, yeah, so that's the Postcard by Anne Berest. I'm not sure if this is a translated. Let me just check. And I bought this new. She's also, Anne Berest, the best-selling co-author of How to Be Parisian Wherever You Are. So this is a very French book. And I think that if you, yes, it is translated. I think if you love anything about French life or French history, you'll like this. It's translated by Tina Cover from the French. So that's the Postcard. My second choice that I hope to read for people, April. Okay. The third book I talked about already, so I won it in a giveaway. And because of having this injury on my knee, which is pretty traumatic, was pretty traumatic, because this is going on the third week that barely, in the beginning, I couldn't walk at all. And it is a very scary thing to be dependent on other people. So I wanted to read happy books. And luckily, it was March Mystery Madness, and I have a lot of books that I'm going to talk to you about on my wrap-up. But this sounds happy to me. I hope it is. And it's Tales of a Pet Vet, Stories from the Clinic and House Calls by Dr. Dawn Filos. It's a nice little cover with a winning, and I was trying to tell you the last time, it's the Ian Book of the Year. Ian Book. Okay, finalist, the Independent Author Network. Finalist. Okay, I couldn't read that before. I hardly could read it. So, Dr. Dawn Filos' own menagerie of pets growing up, including Willie the woolly monkey, primed her for a career as a veterinarian. Here, Dr. Dawn shares her heartfelt and often hilarious journey from nervous novice to seasoned, self-assured doctor, who understands with all of her heart that no visit or emergency is too trivial for a pet doctor. And I think what she does is she travels around. She's sort of a roving pet vet. I've had dogs for the first time in my 50s or even early 60s, and I hope to get a dog again, but it's a big responsibility, and there were a lot of pet visits so I'm really interested in hearing about that. And I also mentioned the Harriet books that I wanted to read, and but I was watching the James Herriot All Things Big and Small, and then on TV, but then they have he wrote 4 books, I think, or 5, All Things Bright and Beautiful, and it comes from some Bible quotation. But I think I might try to take one out of the library. I tried to take the book that they're taking out, that People April is featuring on their monthly read, which is Raising Hair, but I wasn't able to get it from the library. But it sounds very interesting. There was also a book when they were doing a poll about which book to read for People April, and it was On the Hippie Trail, I think it was, by Rick Steves, and they also don't have that at my library, but I was a big proponent of Rick Steves and recently watched him do a conference about this book and how it came to pass, which sounds very interesting. And so I might read both of those books, who knows? All right, now the last book is a David Sedaris, Happy Go Lucky. And I heard this on, now I'm not sure what channel, but I'm going to have it below. It's a very good friend of mine, but of course I'm not prepared 100%. But she actually told me to read one of another one of David Sedaris's books, but I had already read it. So I'm going to try Happy Go Lucky. Now, if you don't know David Sedaris, he's a humorist, and it says here he has a gift for illuminating small things. His essays exist for a reason, namely to describe and preserve his family. His family is the deciding factor that makes him a warm and funny writer to the core. And back when, I'm reading a little bit about what it's about, restaurant menus were still printed on paper and wearing a mask or not was a decision made mostly on Halloween, David Sedaris spent his time doing normal things. As Happy Go Lucky opens, he is learning to shoot guns with his sister, visiting muddy flea markets in Serbia, buying gummy worms to feed to ants, and telling his non-agenarian father wheelchair jokes. So, if you've read this book, let me know. I've had good and bad luck with David Sedaris in the sense that some of his books I liked and some I didn't. So if you've read this, let me know. All right, now I'm going to talk about some other books that maybe are not specifically for April books, but because of March Mystery Madness, and oh yeah, I wanted to say that there is another event that I'm going to participate in. It's from Angelia at Read and Reread, a good friend of mine, and it's called Endless Drama. And one of her books, she has 2 books, and I don't have one, but I did order it from the library. It's The Piano Lesson by August Wilson. Now, August Wilson, I didn't know who he was until I went to college in Minnesota in my late 30s, and he had lived part of his life in the Twin Cities, as I did, though I think he was brought up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I could be wrong, but I think most of his plays were set there. But his writing career sort of started, or maybe it started before, but it went even further in the Twin Cities. And The Piano Lesson follows the lives of the Charles family in the Doker Charles household and an heirloom, the family piano, which is decorated with designs carved by an enslaved ancestor. The play focuses on the arguments between a brother and a sister who have different ideas on what to do with the piano. But of course, it's about much more than that. August Wilson was biracial, and he wanted to talk about racial, the effects of slavery, and this has a lot to do with that. I'll try to have a picture, a photo of the cover right here. Okay, now back to March Mystery Madness. I still have some leftover books from the library, and one of them is, I talked a lot about Frances Fyfield, and this one sounded interesting. It's Without Consent. And it has to do with a serial killer. So a lot of people, even me, I'm not really loving books about serial killers like I used to. But this book sounded interesting because no-nonsense prosecutor Helen West is a real combination of jaundiced pragmatism and well-guarded vulnerability. Her take-no-prisoners attitude is legendary. So it talks about sexual assault, so I'm not going to go much into that, but you can tell that about from the Without Consent. So it says here that it's an extraordinarily disturbing and unforgettable novel. Now, like I said, I'm looking for happy books, so I don't know, but I do love the author. As if people saw the video where I'm talking about how I got this author's recommendation, I'll have that also down in the description box, that video. And the other book is also by the real name of Frances Fyfield, which was Frances Hegerty, and that's The Playroom. And it says, no one could fail to admire this novel, a wholly believable horror story. Frances Hegerty's acute portrayal of a psychopath and his victims is frighteningly real. So I had read this a long time ago, and let me see when it was written. It was written in 92. So I think I read this in the 90s. Let me see if I can. And I'll just read you a little bit. The front door closed behind David. Catherine did not ask where he had been. When he arrived in the kitchen, she was standing at the business end with her hands in the kitchen sink. Mrs. Harrison came. I told her you know who had come to stay with her granny. Like you told me. Without comment, both had ceased to mention Janetta's name, which had dropped entirely from the conversation. So, yeah, I'm not going to read you all of it, but I don't know if I want to read this at this time in my life, but I might take a look at it. It was waiting for me at the library, so why not? Want to see if I want to add it to my Frances Fyfield collection. Another event that is happening is the Picture This, a celebration of picture books. I was talking about a book that I wanted to get my granddaughter, but it was out of stock, and it's called Aloha Everything. I'll try to have a copy over here, but they do have it in my library, but they're out of stock, and I could not give it to my granddaughter like I wanted to. But Picture This is hosted by Jack at Spread Book Joy, my good friend, and Shelly at Shellyish. So that's another. So I'm definitely going to look. Like I said, I ordered it from my library. Luckily, the library probably bought it before it was out of print, and it was published. It was self-published, but by sort of an organization of Hawaiian people, and it's about everything aloha, and even words, how to speak. And what I saw, the picture book is beautiful, and I really want. My granddaughter loved Hawaii so much. I want to gift her that book when I go to Minnesota. If I don't hurt another one of my bones or muscles or tendons, whatever it was. And I think in either Picture This or People April, I'm not sure which one, and I'm thinking it's Picture This, they're also celebrating Alice from Alice the Giant Bookshelves. She passed away, and she also, beside loving picture books, she was a teacher. She loved mysteries, as I do, and I got to know her a little bit through the mysteries. But I know she would not like those serial killer books. I don't even think I want to read those. But she did love Agatha Christie. And one book, I read a book, Agatha Christie novel for March Mystery Madness. But here was another one on my shelf that I actually bought at the Shakespeare and Company in Paris and have it stamped, is The Pale Horse. Now, I'm told this is not one of the best of Agatha Christie, but even the worst of Agatha Christie is wonderful to me. So I'm going to read this in honor of Alice. Well, that's a lot, and I'm not promising I'm going to read all these books because I have other mysteries that are left over from March Mystery Madness. I still have to do my wrap-up where I talk about them. And I'm still reading, almost finished with a 5-star Irish book that was from the Irish Readathon in March. And I did read 2 books for that Readathon, but the one that I think is a 5-star read is the one that I'm reading now, and I'll talk about that when I do my March wrap-up, even though I'm sort of cheating. So I hope you enjoyed my April plans, many events, and I hope if you're interested in A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, please click on the link in my description box and join, because we're starting today. But this is especially because of my injury, doing everything very slowly, and this is really chill. It's going to be a chill event. And thank you so much for watching my channel, and thank you for all your wonderful wishes for my recovery. In case you don't know what happened, nothing really happened. I didn't fall. I didn't have an injury. Nothing is broken. But I had a very bad overuse injury on one of my tendons. It has a long name, so I'm not going to let you know what it is. Can't even say it. Pez something. And it gets irritated, and it can cause a lot of problems, which I found out. But I'm going to physical therapy. I'm able to stand on it. I can walk up the stairs very slowly. But one thing that happened, there's always something, right? Because I couldn't use my right leg, and my left leg is my weaker leg, because I also have hip osteoarthritis, I started using my left hand to lean on things to walk, and I started getting pains in my left hand shoulder because of the leaning. When we went into the ocean, I was like leaning really hard on my partner, and then also on the right hand I was leaning on my cane, because when you go into the ocean, it's a lot. Once you're in the ocean, that's fine, you're weightless, but getting to the ocean from the sand was a little bit difficult. So I had some pains in my left hand, and I don't want it to get more irritated. So I'm just taking it easy and hoping I don't get into any more trouble by my overdoing things, because I tend to overdo things. That's my personality. I overdo everything, including reading sometimes. But I had a wonderful March reading month, despite it really was a wonderful distraction to the pain when I read all these wonderful books I'm going to tell you about next time. So thank you so much for watching. Check out all of the links in the description box, and if you want to join any of the events in April, like I am, let me know what you think in the comments below. Say hi, if nothing else. And I wish you all, as usual, from Hawaii, aloha.